and welcome to Tomorrow. Now, we've got fast radio bursts coming to us from the universe. Does that mean it's aliens? Plus, China is growing something on the far side of the moon. What do you think that is? Then we're going to talk to the University of Stuttgart's Small Sat Society, where they've got rovers inside rockets crawling around and experiments on the International Space Station. Stay tuned. This is Orbit 12.03.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
And thanks for sticking with us. Now, I want to introduce my beautiful crew here. So we've got Michael Clark, also known as Space Mike. He's our rocket specialist of tomorrow. Then we also have Sarah Vincent, who is a museum guide at the Griffith Observatory. We also have Jade Kim, who works for a startup.
John Cena thing. Hey!
She's still here. And she works for a startup that gets minorities into STEM, which is something I think is really a great goal to have. So, and me, I guess I shouldn't forget myself. My name's Lisa Studjanovsky, and I work here at Tomorrow. That's my job. So thank you very much for joining us. Before we get into news today, we just want to throw back to last week, Orbit 12.02. We talked about Starhopper and what's been going on at SpaceX. Now, we got a little bit of information wrong there, and the community did reach out and tell us about that. And so we weren't prepared, and we're going to do better. We're going to make sure that we have our facts straight, or otherwise we're not going to say things as fact when they're not. So we appreciate the community chiming in there, and we will do better next time. Thank you.
Definitely, my bad, everyone.
Yeah, so let's get into news. Our first one here is fast radio bursts. So I'm going to admit here that I don't really know what they are, and when I think about it, is it alien civilizations sending radio messages to us? Because that's what I think when I think of radio waves. Like, for someone who doesn't know what a fast radio burst is, what are they?
No one knows. Isn't that fun?
So I'm not alone then.
Okay.
No,
the
you're
science.
not alone. So the first fast radio burst was discovered in just 2007 by Parkes Observatory in Australia.
Oh,
right? And it's just this really, 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 really distant high-energy radio source. So we weren't sure at the beginning if they were coming from inside. There's so little of the energy left from this distant, distant thing that we weren't sure if it was just interference from Earth. If it was just some random stray signal from Earth. Exactly. Yeah. It's like if you've got, this is background noise, here's your burp, 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 FRB, bloop. You got to look really close to find these because there's so little energy left. So we were like, okay, is it coming from Earth? No. No. After finding other ones, and the really big one was found in 2012. It's got the fancy name of FRB 121102 because
number,
yeah,
number,
right?
number.
But that number tells you when it was found. Exactly, 2012, November 2nd.
Oh, I didn't get that. I was looking at the name, like, I wonder what these numbers mean. Some fancy coding thing.
Yep.
Whatever. But no, there's some logic.
Right, that one's
not
obviously
like
not like national, not like
Matrix
galactic catalog,
numbers.
blah blah blah. No.
Got it. Okay.
So this one with this 2012 discovery, it was a repeating one. So we could take multiple readings from it and trace it back. And we found the galaxy that it's coming from. It's not from Earth. It's not background noise. It's not some random signal happening, somebody opening the microwave before it stopped. No.
How far away?
Oh my gosh. FRB 121102 is 3 billion light years away.
That's a lot of light years.
Its host galaxy is in Auriga. But the really fun thing, the reason it's in the news right now, is because there is a brand new telescope called CHIME, Canada Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment.
You didn't even have to look at your notes for that. That's amazing.
And so it's this really cool radio telescope that is, it's, as its name implies, it's looking at hydrogen throughout the universe. It's mapping the density of hydrogen everywhere so that we can kind of roll back time and look at the distribution of matter toward the beginning of the universe.
Wait, if you're looking for hydrogen, then how do you look at radio signals?
It is hydrogen emits energy in radio frequencies.
Oh.
Yeah. So as it's losing energy, as it's cooling with the background of the universe, it's releasing energy, and that energy is in radio. Right?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between this and the type of bursts that we see from pulsars? Is that
I was going to
gamma
ask
rays?
that, yeah.
Is it? What, oh, pulsars? So pulsars tend to be. I mean, everything is. I don't want to say not gamma rays. I don't believe that we receive
The same
gamma
type
rays from pulsars. There's something else called gamma ray bursters. Those are, again, distant galaxies. Those are the most violent, most high energy things we've ever seen.
And those usually come from like the black holes in those other galaxies, right?
We don't know. Sure.
We don't know?
Yeah, we don't know where gamma ray bursters
why
come
we're
from.
looking.
We don't know exactly what's going on in quasars and blazars, and we don't know what's causing fast radio bursts. But we can look at the radiation that's coming to us from fast radio bursts, and there's a spiral polarization that indicates that the source of these is next to high intensity magnetic fields.
And that's what Carrie Ann in the chat actually brought up. They are super bright, right? Despite the fact that the signal is dissipating.
Oh yeah,
The source itself is
oh yeah, the source is hugely energetic. Let's see.
like a diamond.
Fast radio bursts are their energy output at their source is like what's the range? It's 500 billion solar energies
Wow.
in a millisecond.
And
Right.
yeah, exactly. And one more thing that Destructor 1701 in the chat room brought up, in long distance astronomy, there's an important distinction between the frequencies these EM bursts are emitted at and the frequencies they're received at.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thanks for reminding us, or thanks for iterating that, because that's
Yeah.
actually a very important point.
Yeah.
Is that because they're so far
They're getting
away?
stretched out.
Yeah, so it's called redshift. And so if you emit, let's say, I'm
say
going
you
to
start with
in
a
blue.
gamma.
I'm going
Or
to
start, oh, you're doing
yeah,
color.
I'm going to color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Start blue.
So if your peak intensity is in blue, so high frequency visible light, and you emit from a couple billion light years away, by the time it reaches Earth, the universe itself has stretched so much that your blue wavelengths, boop, 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 are now red wavelengths by the time they get here.
Think of like twitching versus doing the worm.
Right?
If we're translating this into dancing, which we should.
All things are dance.
Absolutely.
German dance, go!
I've got too many things hooked up to me. It'll all fall down.
I have another question that
Mike.
is somewhat related. I was under the understanding that our radio emissions from our technology is being dissipated out into space and is just continually going. Because of redshift, though, I've never thought about this before. Eventually, those signals will dissipate and be gone, right? Or will they continue on forever until they're picked up by something?
I would say it's more the distance will just. There's so little information, so little noise coming from us, and it's covering such a far distance. The intensity of it would be so little that there'd be almost nothing to detect. So we're not, the reason we detect these things is they are coming at us in focused beams. We only know that pulsars are there because they're the beam the beam of ionized particle or energy that comes to us, it's focused by the magnetic field of the pulsar. So it's creating this beam that swings past Earth.
Like a lighthouse.
Exactly. And so it's only when that lighthouse light is swinging past our telescopes that we can detect it. But if all other times, that part of the sky is blank to us. So Earth, we're not sending out focused beams in various directions. So what you're working with is the inverse square law of like, you start with this much energy here, and by the time you have just doubled the sphere, it's half as much energy here, and then double it again, half as much energy. And by the time you get to the next star, we're not putting out there's not a whole lot of radio to detect from us. But yeah, it would still also be redshifted if you go far enough away. So, but we haven't been putting out radio for a long enough period that there would have been any redshift. It's not far enough away for the universe to have had any
Because the first
real
radio
detectable
signals
effect.
were emitted like, what was it, like Industrial Revolution, right?
Oh,
like
no, the
late
30s.
18.
I mean, anything, you know, so anything that went out, anything that broadcast,
exactly.
yeah, it was.
That's pretty interesting.
It's one of
to
the
think
things
about.
that Contact got right.
Exactly. It's
yeah.
like what are they're hearing news from like some historical event.
Yeah.
So kind of bringing it back to Earth, pun intended. Why do we care? These things are so far away.
Yeah.
We don't even know for sure where they come from.
Yep.
Why they're there, and the signal we're receiving is, I mean, it's impressive that our instrumentation and our scientists can pick up on it. Who cares? Why?
Oh, well, one, I mean, I don't know about you, but I love knowing, right? And looking at this, when we see this energy coming to us, we learn not just about the source, but we also learn about the stuff in between. Because all of the energy that is coming from these gamma ray bursts and the fast radio bursts and the quasars, it's passing through all of the gas and dust, the entire universe between it and us. So we every little grain of dust in between is leaving information in that signal.
So it's kind of like when a kid goes outside, get their shoes dirty, and they come tracking it through the house, and it's like,
I know you were down in that quarry.
I can see what you went through. And then from the chat room, space. Okay, I'm gonna say space yuck, but I know it's Spacey UK. But
Space Y UK.
Space Y UK. I'm going to say space yuck. They say
yuck.
they actually have a very good metaphor. Detecting Earth's emissions is like trying to hear somebody else's headphones at a rock concert.
Yep.
And that's a very good point.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed that, you know, we have the ability to look at a signal full of noise like this, and, you know, the actual signal we're looking at is only this big compared to the rest of it. There just must be an enormous amount of computing power that goes into that.
Absolutely. Chime is kind of an amazing instrument. It's got it's kind of a novel design. Most radio telescopes are parabolas. You see the Goldstone dishes and Arecibo. It's this big dish in a valley in Puerto Rico. But Chime is 4 half pipes, and it's got 1,024 modified cell phone receivers sitting in there, and they're taking a 200 square degree swath of the sky, and they're taking samples a couple billion every second, and they're running it to 2 different computer center processors.
Old phone receivers?
Not old, but
or like
adapted.
Talk about
repurposed.
upcycling.
Yeah, I don't know that they're old. I don't know that they're used.
Or like,
say
you know what I mean.
I just put the image in my mind of somebody ruining the data by going skateboarding on this thing. Oh my god.
Oh man, she did say half pipe.
I did say half pipe.
Shred the gnar, destroy the
I feel
evidence.
like there's 2 important things to this. Either one, you know, we learn more about the universe and stellar formations and phenomena like that, or 2, on the very, very, very rare chance that this is some sort of intelligence, you know, like we all hope that whenever we see signals like this, like the WOW signal that was in the Pegasus constellation, we all hope that this could be aliens, that it's
And it was just
detection of
Owen
another
Wilson the whole time.
Either way, it'll be good information. I mean,
Yeah.
whether we
But
learn
the
more
thing-
about the universe or if we do discover something else out there, either way,
Yeah.
it's good for everybody.
And this animation that's happening now is an animation of how random these fast radio bursts are, how spread across the sky they are. We actually, since 2007 up through the 2012 discovery of the repeating fast radio burst, we determined that there should be about 1,000 of these every year spread across the sky. But because radio dishes typically have been so narrow band, we weren't able to see it. But with Chime scanning a huge swath of the sky every night, they're in just testing mode, and they've already found 13 plus fast radio bursts, plus the second repeating fast radio burst. They've got six signals from this same one source.
So basically, they're pretty common.
Yes, they're pretty common, and we think that they are possibly deaths of stars. So neutron stars forming, getting black hole, getting absorbed into, accreted into black holes. Some extremely violent, destructive event.
And the thing about it potentially coming from a life source, well, then if what we think is correct in that it's coming from something very like violent, like a magnetar or like something like a neutron star, then by definition alone, there would be no life anywhere near that source because it'd be sterilized.
That's a
because
really good point.
those
Not
things
that we
are
know.
So basically,
violent.
it's not aliens.
It's not
is what I'm
aliens.
getting from this.
Yes.
It's not aliens.
Get over it.
Yep,
So-
it is not
so-
aliens, but it is far more information about our universe.
Chang'e is a new design. It's helping us pick up so much more of these than ever before. We've got new ones that are repeating, and it's not aliens. That's what I'm getting out of this.
Exactly. And then
We're
Astro.
not saying it's science.
What?
There you go.
We're
And
not
then
saying it's aliens, it's science.
It is science.
aliens would be science, Mike.
True,
Just kidding.
true.
Astro_is in the chat room says Chime only covers a portion of the northern hemisphere, and that's actually a good point. So there's this many signals coming from just like a small, not a small, but like a not even the entire
Right.
sky.
Right.
You know, for instance, that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's important thing to take into mind.
All right, so we're going to go from Chime over to China now.
Ooh, look at you.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Proud of you.
Before we
right.
get into this story, last week we also talked about Chang'e. I pronounced that really bad, but the Chinese lander and rover mission to the far side of the moon, and we also got a couple little bits of info here that it could have been construed the wrong way. So
I was definitely wrong about some information on the biology experiment. The info that I had gotten was that they had put in Arabidopsis seeds in there, some potato seeds, and some silkworms. But it turns out at the last minute before the launch, the silkworms were actually replaced with fruit flies, and I was unaware of that. So I apologize for not doing more research and finding out what the actual story was with what is inside there. But there have been a couple updates with it as well. I mean,
the fruit flies were actually in egg form, so the experiment was to see if they could actually hatch while they were on the moon in this container. And to be like I guess to clarify here, like the biological experiment, it wasn't just like exposed to the moon, like it was in a sealed container,
Like a biodome, but in a container.
yeah, but like really tiny. It was like very small to fit on the rover. And so, yeah, I mean, they had the yeast, they had the cotton plant, which did actually sprout. And they had some pictures of the cotton plant sprouting. A couple of images that were on Twitter seemed to show like the cotton plant was like, you know, like quite big, quite sprouted with a few leaves on it. Some of those images were from the controlled part of the experiment back on Earth, the one that, you know, you compare to, because in science you always want something to compare to. Like it's all well and good to go and grow something on the moon, but if you don't have something on Earth to look at, to compare it, you know, you're not going to learn whether the lunar radiation environment was affecting how that plant grows. So yeah, there was images on Twitter with lots of leaves on the plant, and then one image on Twitter where you know, there was like, you could see the plant, it was growing and it was like kind of green, but it was real tiny. And that's the one that's actually from the container on the moon. So
It's really cool.
Is the container still? Is it heated? Does it have some sort of life support, or is it?
So it wasn't heated. But we talked last week, I think, Mike.
It's pressurized though, so it's
was
pressurized. It
pressurized.
does have an atmosphere inside of this container.
Right, but if so, it's as that part of the moon goes into shadow.
Yeah.
It's not.
And these experiments were actually on the lander, not the rover, which I think we kind of may have alluded to last week as
Gotcha.
well. And the lander itself actually has an RTG, a radioisotope thermal generator, that keeps it powered and keeps it heated. But the aim of the experiment wasn't to keep this stuff going indefinitely. Like it was planned that the experiments were going to go into this cold phase and they died. So the yeast, the fruit flies, the plant, and I believe they had other seeds as well. Rapeseed and Arabidopsis plant seeds are no longer alive.
Yeah, I was going to say Miko1 or MECO1 in the chat room actually mentioned cotton plant now dead in lunar night. That's a very sad. That's probably one of the saddest things I've read in this chat room all morning.
There was a thing on Twitter that got raised. Someone was like, you know, it's all well and good to grow your container of plants and stuff and your fruit flies on the moon, but like, why should we care? We already do this on the International Space Station, growing plants in controlled environments in space. La la la, like, go China, but we've already been doing it. And I think that attitude was really kind of not cool. Because
Not cool, Twitter.
they were trying to say that what China has done is no more important than what we've been doing in the ISS for years. But hang on a minute. Is China allowed to participate in the ISS? No. So I think good on China for doing this, because they're not on the surface of the moon and they're not growing in lunar regolith, but they're still showing us that they can get something to the moon. They can keep those biology samples alive for a particular amount of time, and they're exposing it to the radiation environments on the far side of the moon, which is something that we don't seem to have a lot of information about. And actually, there's some international experiments on the Chinese lunar lander that is measuring these radiation environments as well as the biology as well. So,
right.
And those are international partnerships, if I'm correct. One from Germany, actually, it's on my notes. We have the lunar lander neutrons and dosimetry installed on the lander, and that was from Germany. And then we have the Advanced Small Analyzer for Neutrals, or ASAN, on the rover, which is looking at energy neutral atoms and positive ions to look at the kind of radiation environment around the lander as it explores the environment on the moon. So there's some really cool science being done on this rover.
Yeah, and then Astro YYZ, thank you for correcting me, by the way, I saw that. They ask in the chat room, how can anything germinate at ambient moon temps? And didn't you mention that basically it's a controlled environment within the container itself?
Yeah, so they are right. You know, plants don't germinate at super freezing cold temperatures. I mean, a lot of seeds actually do need thermal shock in order to germinate. So, I learned that garlic is really good at this because apparently if you put garlic in the fridge and then you take it out of the fridge, it thinks it's time to grow because it's the same change in season. And I should know this. I used to work in a garlic farm. But
you worked on a garlic farm?
That's an after dark story.
Oh, that sounds delicious. You must have smelled amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, in nature, the transition from cold temperatures of winter to spring is what signals a lot of plants to start to grow. And so that cold is important, but it needs to come up to that warmer temperature in order for the plants to know, okay, it's time to grow now. So they would have had to heat the container, at least at some point, to start off the germination process. We know that eventually it went cold again, and that's why everything died, but they had to keep it warm enough.
If there wasn't some heat in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
They have an RTG.
so they've got a source of heat.
Right. Okay.
They might have just gotten heat from that. We don't know.
Yeah.
However, I feel like the whole thing, though, with the whole biology experiment, I mean, it seems like almost an insignificant experiment that probably, I don't know, but it seems like it was probably thrown on last minute because they had a little bit of extra mass that they could have taken some instruments. And with the whole partnership with Germany and having all of these different instruments that are different from the Chang'e 3 instruments, the whole purpose of this biology experiment is just a small step. Since we have the extra payload, let's do an experiment to move forward towards our human spaceflight program. And for China, their whole plan is to build an outpost on the moon. And so they want to be able to make sure that they can have crews be able to stay there. And we already know that we can do that. I mean, there's some data that they have, and they've gotten a lot of data from the Russians about like the Mir space station and things like that. And of course, they've been doing everything with their Tiangong space station. So they know how to keep people alive in pressurized environments, but they want to make sure that they can actually grow food at their lunar base as well. So why not do as many experiments as you can on the path of getting there? And so I feel like a lot of people kind of missed the point of why they even threw on this biology experiment to get that data. So can we start doing that data now for this small experiment before we spend a couple of $1 billion or a couple billion yuan trying to set up the base and try to grow plants and have them fail for whatever reason? We don't know. So I think that it's a really cool thing that they're doing. And I certainly hope that internationally we will all cooperate and go back to the moon together.
Yeah, and in the chat room, Green Jim LL brings up a good point. In terms if you were looking for like the relevance of this, I guess, not that I think it needs to be proven, but they said, and they are in the zone between Earth gravity and microgravity on the ISS. So kind of like you alluded to what was mentioned on that Twitter war or whatever, people saying, oh, we already have experiments on the ISS, who cares? But it's like, well, the moon is still a completely different like environment from the ISS as well. So
I mean, there is the capability on the ISS to, they have something called it's like a centrifuge within one of the modules, and you can spin it up to about 1/6 gravity, so you can kind of simulate what it would be like in a lunar gravity environment. But, you know, you can do that, artificially, but actually growing it in that environment, I think it is more, more realistic of what, the knowledge you can get out of that.
Yeah.
So.
And then I guess, so in terms of the fate of the fruit flies, Milan Usk in the chat room actually mentions 2 flies survived. The mutations will lead to the downfall of humanity. First of all. And secondly, really, 2 of them survived? I had no idea.
Survive to what point?
Are they still alive, Milan?
All right, community, we need you to go and
clarify.
Are these flies still alive, and are they going to kill us when we eventually start our lunar colony? Are they going to, infest our habitats?
Or did they just survive the longest and then they died their natural fruit fly death?
Yeah.
I don't know what the lifespan of a fruit fly is.
2 weeks?
It can't be that long.
It's 2.
Their
I think it's 2
entire
weeks.
life cycle is about
I was kidding.
2 or 3
Oh,
weeks. We
sorry.
used to grow them in
My
biology.
bad. Milan Usk was kidding. I really
there you
wish,
go.
you know how gullible we are on this set? You know how serious we take you guys?
We just really, we put that trust in our community. I think that's where that comes from.
And now that trust is gone.
I think Mikey had a really good point about spurring international cooperation. So the second international experiment, they had the ASAN experiment. That was actually provided by Sweden. And then they have another experiment from collaborating with the Netherlands that is actually just a low-frequency radio experiment that's not on the lander or the rover.
It was on the relay satellite,
It's on the
right?
relay satellite. So, hopefully this can bring China collaborating with different countries in Europe and get that going so that we can have these lunar colonies that we want. And like you mentioned, having that first experiment as a base to go from is great, and moving towards actually being able to grow plants in the lunar environment. But I will say that there is a very huge step between creating an environment in which seeds can germinate and live for a couple days and then die, and actually getting the plants all the way to where they produce, a yield that we can actually eat. So I think there's a long way to go, but I think this is a great first step.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, on that, we are going to go into taking a quick break. But before we do, we're going to thank our patrons that make this possible. So thank you to our Escape Velocity patrons who contribute $10 or more per episode. You make this show happen, and we honestly couldn't do this without you. But we also have our orbital subscribers who contribute $5 or more per episode. And again, thank you so much, because you make this show go and you make this show happen. And so you make things happen like the New Year's live stream that we got to do, and all the different kind of events that we're going to have this year. Launch Minute is back. If you haven't seen Launch Minute, go check it out. It's in its own video. And yeah, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have the University of Stuttgart talking to us about their small-sat society. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
Okay.
All right, thanks for sticking with us. Now, before we do get into our interview, I just want to say 2 things here. There is a Delta IV heavy launch happening in approximately 30 minutes' time. I don't know if we're going to stop the show to go to that, but that would be cool. Maybe we'll have it. No, I'm
Carrie Ann's shaking her head.
I'm getting a no from Carrie Ann, so I guess we are not going to co-watch that with you. But you may have also noticed that the Delta IV heavy description in the calendar, it doesn't actually have words there. It has hex code. And then, so I brought in a comment from the Stray Eagle, who actually translated what that is. So the Stray Eagle says that the hex code on the NROL 71 launch calendar reads, classified payload for the US National Reconnaissance Office. That is the most subtle Easter egg I've ever seen in the whole show, but that's amazing. All right, let's get straight into our interview. So I want to introduce Martin Siedorf and Martin Zietz from the University of Stuttgart Small-Sat Society, which we will refer to as KSat from now on. So thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, nice to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries. And you guys actually watch the show, which I think is pretty awesome. So thank you for 1, watching, and 2, coming on to join us.
Thanks.
The first thing I want to ask is, how did both of you, why did both of you even join a small sat society at your university?
Well, to be completely correct, I didn't just join, I just founded it. So
Created it.
no, it's we both study aerospace engineering, and the study is mostly theoretically. So we said, we want to do a little more hands-on, doing projects, get a little to know how the phase work of space projects are working. And so we said, we make a society, a small society, we make projects, and that's for me the reason. I believe for you it's the same.
No, for me, I was a space geek for a couple of years now, and I was always kind of frustrated that I couldn't really do anything in space yet. I mean, I could play Kerbal Space Program and stuff, but that's not, real space flight. And when I came here at the University of Stuttgart, I saw KSat, and then I thought, now I can do real space flight. So that's great.
That's awesome. And so I guess there's a few different projects that people can get involved with at your small sat society. I've had a brief read on all of them, but there are just so many. Do you guys have a favorite project that you're working on? I guess we'll start with your favorites and kind of work around, because my favorite is the project where you have a robot that's crawling around inside rockets. That's what I got out of that. But I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, that's basically correct. So, to be perfectly honest, none of us have actually worked on that particular project, but we can still talk about it. It's fine. So the robot crawling on the inside of the rocket is a technology demonstrator for a robot that could later crawl on the outside of a rocket. So the idea is that you have your space station in orbit, and you can have the robot crawl around on the outside of the space station and look for damages and things like that, and maybe even repair them. So how this works is that we charge these pads that you can see sort of in this light yellow color. So we charge those electrically, and that makes them stick to a metal surface, so it doesn't fall off in microgravity.
It's the system it's kind of like the same mechanism. If you say you have a balloon, rub it on your head, and then stick it to the wall. That's the mechanism that makes this rover stick to the ground. And in here it's just a little insight of how it's going to look like. And that blue you can see is the outside of the rocket. So it's a Rexus rocket. And inside we want to drive just forward and make a little curve or drive around. That's the plan so far.
Yeah, and actually, sorry. Yeah. And actually, our chat room is going crazy for that. So Jan_Nauber from YouTube says, robot crawlers on a rocket? Hell yeah! And also from Chris Tataku B on YouTube, now that's a vision for the future. So it looks like our audience is pretty on board with this particular sat. So that's pretty amazing. In case you needed that validation, which I'm sure you probably don't. But there it is.
That's nice to know. Absolutely.
And
So
go ahead, Mike.
Why though? Why have this robot? What is it that you're looking for? Obviously, it seems to me like there's more work that it could potentially do on the inside of a rocket tank rather than the outside. But what's its purpose?
Oh, we haven't really thought about the inside. That's an interesting idea. But the idea is that you don't have to send out an astronaut to inspect the damage or repair something. You can just have this robot crawl around on the outside of your space station and then have it look for damages. And you don't have all the troubles associated with doing a spacewalk, So you don't have to put anyone in danger. It's much easier. It's also a lot smaller, so it can crawl around easier. It's just easier, I guess, to have the robot go out.
I think we needed one of those when, on the ISS, the Russian astronauts were hammering into the Soyuz vehicle. We could have used this robot for that. So how are you guys going in testing? How's that project coming along?
Right now, we had a launch last year in March, as far as I remember. But the rocket had, how was it officially called?
An off-nominal flight.
An off-nominal flight, yeah. So we didn't really came to microgravity, so we couldn't test it. But we already supplied for next mission, and we're up for that and preparing a redesign and improvement.
So we should probably explain how these flights work. So the way this works is the German Aerospace Center and ESA and who else? The Swedish Space Corporation.
I think it's called Corporation. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just say the Swedish Space Corporation, SSC. So they are providing these rockets. I think they are old refurbished ICBMs, and they give out a competition for student teams like us to apply and propose experiments to fly on these rockets, and then the teams can build those experiments and then go to Sweden to launch the rocket, and then it goes to 90 kilometers, and then they can test their payloads in microgravity and vacuum. Yeah. So it's a great program, and so Roche was already on the previous cycle of this program, and now, unfortunately, that rocket failed. So now we're getting ready for a launch in March next year.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Very interesting.
Can you still hear us?
Yeah. Your internet's a little sketchy, but that's okay. We'll work with it.
You're good. You're good.
So that's unfortunate that that suborbital rocket didn't quite do what you needed. But I would love, personally, to see one of your test robots on something like a New Shepard capsule on one of their kind of suborbital flights, and just to see, like, what do they call that mannequin Skywalker? And your Roach robot, like, crawling around inside while mannequin Skywalker's floating in microgravity. I think that'd be such a cool thing to see on camera. And I mean, I don't know if we know anyone that can hook you up, but that would be really cool.
That'd be absolutely awesome. But
Sorry,
just a little explanation of the video you just see there. It's the red thing is our rover, but the snow that just came inside the module, that's part of the not planned flight. So it just crashed without any break into the snow we had in Sweden. So that's how it came. And we didn't have any opening at the module. So
I mean, even when things fail, like, things fail a lot in spaceflight, but usually we actually sometimes we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. So were you guys able to get any data out of that flight at all, or was that just a complete, write it off because it didn't go to microgravity kind of thing?
We learned we could have been way more prepared for everything, but really knowledge we did not gain. We just said, yeah, we had the time, so we make a little, we make a new design step. That was basically the big advance of it. Just little explanation to this video. That's the Rexus launch we had before the Roche project. And that's Mecha 2RX. And right there you can see we're going to shoot out a small capsule. And that's a predecessor mission for a re-entry capsule. But that's a complete other project.
Wow, you guys are working on the re-entry capsule? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what you see right now is the first project we did as KSat.
Wow. So I think I just realized I was pronouncing KSat wrong.
Where's that launch site in Sweden?
At Kiruna.
It's quite the northest place you can be.
Okay.
So let's come back around to one of your other projects. You guys have something on the International Space Station at the moment, the PAPEL experiment. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experiment actually does and why you guys decided to put something on the International Space Station?
Because it's cool. I mean, International Space Station, I mean, you can have an experiment there. Of course we do it, or we try to get in there. It was a little contest called out from NanoRex and DreamUp from USA and the German Aerospace Center, the DLR. And they provided 3 groups of students to have experiments in 1.5 unit size. So it's 15 by 10 by 10 centimeters, big CubeSat. And it will go with the mission of Alexander Gerst to the ISS. So right here you can see Alexander Gerst with, I believe the middle one was our cube. And we said,
I think it's the right one, actually.
the right one?
I think the middle is Axis.
It's number 76, but I can't see it right now. So yeah, it was. We said we want to make a pump, but not a normal pump. We said we take a ferrofluid, which is a fluid enhanced with magnetic iron particles, and if you add a magnet, you can form the ferrofluid, and if you turn another magnet on above, it will move over the ferrofluid. And by this, we had a complete array, and then towed the ferrofluid just by turning it off and on. I mean the electromagnetics, just to walk around. And that's also a technology demonstrator for a pump, which has no moving parts, which is for us the big thing we say that's quite useful. If it comes to repairing stuff on ISS, for example, you just would have to refill the ferrofluid in order to repair it, or you don't have to switch out any vents or something that you have on a normal pump or something. So right there you can see we had 2 experiment areas, and that's really, really tiny. So we had 2 tanks, 2 experiment areas. We only had the chance to only test 1 experiment area, but we had awesome videos. I mean, you probably can show them later. And we made it. It's moving around the ferrofluid.
I think this is one of my favorite videos that you guys sent us.
So this is actual footage from the International Space Station.
Oh.
Below these circles are electromagnets, and you can see we're turning each on and off, and thereby just move the black ferrofluid.
So does this pump only work with ferrofluid then? And if so, what kind of applications are there? Like, is ferrofluid good at carrying heat? Like, could this be used in like a heat pump system, or what kind of uses do you guys imagine this having?
Heat is also a good idea. To be honest, I
think the idea is that you can move another fluid or solid particles between drops of the ferrofluid. So the ferrofluid is quite oily, actually. So something like water wouldn't really mix with it. So you could move water between. You could enclose a drop of water between 2 drops of ferrofluid and then move it along. And the experimental area 2, the other part that unfortunately we couldn't test. That there the idea was to inject little tiny plastic balls into the track, and then you could move those around with the ferrofluid, and that's basically the idea.
Also, you can, if you have a small pipe where it's all going through the ferrofluid, you can also push air through it. So that's an opportunity as well. And heat would be another way. And also you can use it as a in order to move the momentum of small spaceships, or depends on the size you have. So you can make ACS commanding as well.
Yeah, and actually, Robot Reorg in the chat room brings up a very good point as to how we can utilize this amazing technology. They say it's good for making shape-shifting Terminators. Talking about a little TI something or other.
That's a really cool technology.
T1000.
Is there a follow-up?
T1000. Sorry. I was going to do the Texas Instruments, the TI. I was thinking of the calculator.
Yeah, I'm going to grab you into oblivion. I was so lost. Before my time?
Calculators? No.
Terminator 2's before. Never mind.
Anyways,
so are you guys planning a follow-up to that experiment? Because I just think that's incredibly innovative what you guys were doing there.
Right now, we're waiting for the experiment to come back to Germany. So we're only at first just looking what worked, what did not work, and how exactly is everything looking like right now. But I believe our professor is really thrilled about maybe giving it a second shot. So we'll see where we're going.
The thing is, actually, Papel came home on the Sierra 16 Dragon just last week. So it's already back on the ground. So we're waiting to get it back here. But this particular program that it flew on, that was like a one-time competition. So we can't get another one that way. So someone would have to pay for the next experiment, and that might be the university, but so far nothing's fixed there.
I mean, that's what, Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaigns are for, right? Yeah. Patreon. You had a question, Sarah?
I kind of do, yeah. So you've got little robots crawling around inside and outside of spacecraft. You've got working on solid state pumps, I guess. Are you building towards something bigger? Do you have some end goal in mind?
Our society name is already saying, we want to make a satellite. So not a big one, just starting with a 3-unit CubeSat. That's the other project we are working right now. But all these projects we make, it's like we want to get involved into space projects and make something. So we didn't think about getting everything together. So maybe in the future someday.
So what you can see there is currently our biggest ongoing project, that is SOURCE, the Stuttgart operated University Research CubeSat for Education and Evaluation. Definitely a backronym.
Well played.
So that's a 3-unit CubeSat that's slated to launch in about 2020. So we're working really actively on that, and it's like over 60 people on that team right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's really big.
And what instruments are or will be on that?
So there's a lot of stuff on there. So we have a camera, so you can sort of see this origami-like structure at the bottom there. That's the baffle for the camera that prevents light from the side hitting the camera. So there's a camera in there that we are testing for the institute here, if it works in space, if it can take good pictures, if it gets destroyed by radiation or anything. Then there's a lot of other technology demonstrator payloads from different industry partners that just want to see if there are components that probably weren't specifically designed for spaceflight if they work in orbit. Then we also have atmospheric measurements. So at the front, there are so-called FIPEX sensors, also developed by the institute here, that measure atomic oxygen content in the upper atmosphere. Did I miss anything?
And we're trying to use the camera, which you see right now, not only for making footage of Earth, but also try to use it as a star tracker. So that's another part payload we're using.
So,
and of course, the sensors already said we try to use them during the re-entry. So the re-entry part is a big mission step. So it's not only the demise part; we plan it, we need it.
I mean, it's probably the hours before the re-entry. During the actual re-entry, we probably won't be able to do much. But sort of interesting is like 200 kilometers and downwards. So it's a bit of time, but it's definitely towards the end of the mission.
That's cool. Anything going on in the
Here's
chat
a
room, Jake?
3-unit just for scale. This is a scale model of a 3-unit CubeSat. So not very big, just a tiny little thing. But yeah, you can do a lot with these CubeSats.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's actually a big challenge fitting all of the stuff in this small area.
Yeah.
And we actually, where'd you go? Yeah. So in the chat room, Green Jim LL brings up COTS tech suitable for space applications will be a big cost saver.
Caught
so kind
standing
of
for
that march
commercial
towards
off the shelf.
efficiency. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really important. A way to get students building stuff that's actually going to go to space, made from stuff that you can just, go down to your local electronics store and buy and put together with your peers doing the same thing that interests you, I think is really powerful. and to go to that, like how do you recruit students to join your society, and how does that work? Like, do you have to build your way up, from first you just get coffee for everybody working on the spacecraft, or can you just jump straight back into it?
We go around at the university in the first semester of a new year, especially winter semester, and just present ourselves and say, yeah, hi, we're students, we do this and that, and you want to join. And that's how it's working. I mean, we don't get anything. We don't get paid. We just get a little, we get a lot information actually. And we like to participate.
Yeah, you can get some really amazing experience working on a project. I mean, I'm in my third semester now, so I've been studying for not even 1.5 years now, and already I can work on a satellite. So that's really practical knowledge that's really helpful, and it appeals to a lot of people to put stuff into space, and I can understand why. It's just awesome.
I feel like the pitch of just saying, hey, you want to build a spacecraft, that stands on its own right there. Heck yeah, I want to build a spaceship. Let's do it.
You guys mentioned having amazing experiences through this program. So I want to ask each of you, can you give us your number one absolute highlight moment that you've had by having this ability to work on your own space experiments and space missions?
For me, actually, it's quite a tough one because I've been to a couple of projects right now. So just seeing your project getting launched, I'd say, is really, really the top of it, because you'll be standing there at the launch site and say, yeah, I spent a lot of time into that project, and I didn't sleep quite much for just getting it ready in time. And you see the rocket is launching, and it's still not there's no proof that it's going to be up in space. But yeah, that's kind of like the best part, even, yeah, almost better than just having it working.
It's all about the journey, as they say. And
absolutely.
Upcycle Electronics on YouTube has a good question. They're asking, where do you guys source hardware and parts for projects like this?
Good question.
It's most of it's just sponsoring. So we just say, hey, company, we've seen your part. We're going to do this and that project. You want to sponsor us? You want to maybe give us a spare part or example? And that's one way. The other way is just asking for money, or in the worst case, we just have to buy it.
Exactly. But that's
for projects like for programs like the Rexus program or the Überflieger, where Papel went to the ISS with. Usually, there's some grant money attached to this to winning this competition that you can put your stuff into space. So you get a bit of money there that you can use to buy stuff as well.
Yeah, and you actually, so you mentioned you had industry experiments on one of your crafts. Does that mean that you can partner with different corporations or different industry partners, and then they can provide some sort of funding?
Yeah, that as well. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about that.
I was going to say,
right now.
Feel free to be like, shut up, Jade. You're not allowed to talk about that.
But yeah, they're providing parts and also a little bit of money, I believe.
Cool.
But mainly they provide us with parts because that's easier for them to give to us.
Cool.
Martin Zietz, we didn't hear your most exciting moment that you've had with your programs.
I'd also say it was the only sort of launch I participated in so far. So we have what we call the KSat challenge. That's sort of a little challenge for first semesters where they can sort of learn in an easy way how projects work. So we had to design, there you can see it. That's the size of a Coke can, the part in the middle. So it's tiny, and the challenge was to, it's dropped out of a drone, and then the challenge is to land it as gently as possible without using a parachute. So it's just a little program to get you started to sort of know how stuff works here at KSat. And the launch of that, seeing the launch of it and then seeing it deploy and work and just come down gently, and then afterwards seeing the data from it, that was awesome. And you can see us cheering if you're in just a bit. It's gonna go on for another 30 seconds or so, the video. So as soon as the KSat is dropped from the drone and we can see that the foils that decelerated are out and that it's decelerating, so our deployment mechanism worked, we were just super happy about that. And there you can see me cheering. So yeah, that was a great experience.
I think the thing I'm most impressed about your society is the variation in the different projects you have, from the entry-level KSat thing all the way up to a 3-unit satellite that's going to go to space. Before we wrap this up, did you have any advice for people that wanted to start their own kind of small satellite society in their own university?
Yeah, well, it may sound a little silly, but the main important part is make sure you have maybe a professor, but a PhD student who is maybe working on the same subject and is therefore able to help you with more detailed intel, and also can maybe provide some rooms or something like that. That's for us was the first big thing that was really helping, because our first project was an idea from a professor, and we picked that up because we just wanted to build something, and they helped us out, and that's quite the big thing about it. So if you don't have anyone, it's really, really tough, because you don't have any knowledge, you don't have any professor who's saying, yeah, it's you can use my machines for this or that, because I want to know what's going to work with it. So
I'd also say it's helpful if you get a couple of friends, because for our projects, the constraint is always manpower. We just never have enough people and never enough people who know electronics. And so you just need a couple of people. Usually it's not money, it's time and people that's constraining. So having a couple of friends helps definitely as well.
And before we close out the show, can you guys tell us, if people wanted to find more information about your society and all the projects you're doing, where's the best place that they can find information about that and about you yourselves as well?
So our website is ksat-stuttgart.de. So you can find information about all our projects there. Then we are on Twitter at KSat_Stuttgart, and on Facebook as well at KSat_Stuttgart.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to talk to us. I am suitably impressed about what your society of volunteers and students have been able to achieve. It's actually more than what some companies can even achieve. So you guys should be incredibly proud of the work that you're doing in your projects, because they're quite impressive.
Thank you very much for having us here.
All right, before we close out today,
awesome.
I want to give a very huge shout out to all of our patrons that make this show happen. To our Escape Velocity citizens, these people contribute $10 or more per episode. They get their name in the show, but they also get the feeling of knowing that they make this whole show happen. And we get amazing guests, like the people we're talking to today, and we had Peter Beck on last week, and all of these happen because of you. We could not do this without you, so thank you. We also have our orbital citizens. These people contribute $5 or more per episode, and they get their name in the show, and free worldwide shipping in the swag store, and lots of other cool things. But they make the show go. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am so sincerely thank you for everything you help us to do. And I'm also want to shout out our suborbital citizens as well for making this show happen. We couldn't do New Year's Eve live streams. We couldn't do everything without you guys making a mess of this. And we also have our ground support citizens. But really what I was doing is killing time because there's so many names on this slate now that I have to just keep saying words so that you have enough time to go get a Sharpie and circle your name on the screen and then get some rubbing alcohol and wipe that off your TV screen because you don't want to ruin it. Hopefully I've stalled enough time now. If you would like to contribute to the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Next week, we have the debut of Tomorrow Science for 2019. I'm so excited. So we're going to be having Rose Jones from the Bigelow Laboratory for Ocean Sciences, and Rose is going to talk to us about the strange places where microbes live. We're going to be talking deep sea microbial communities. We're going to be talking using microbes to bioremediate the damage done by mining and acid mine drainage. It's going to be, you can tell I'm like really excited about this because, yeah, we do have a space episode next week too. Stay tuned on Twitter to find out.
We do have a space episode, but science.
Stay tuned on Twitter to find out who our space guest will be if we have one. And science will be at 20:30 UTC next week. So make sure you tune into that as well. But for now, that's it for tomorrow, and we'll see you next time. See you later. Bye.
Thanks for stopping by.